right, we in?
We might be.
We in?
We
We in?
may want to double check with the friends over here at the
Okay,
channel.
yeah. So we don't have a Saf here today. So let us know how
don't.
we're doing in the chat. If we're live, we think we are live. So if someone can just
You
okay.
in. Great.
Ich
We're in.
who said we're in. Okay, thank God. All right, here we are, everybody. Good to see everyone.
Yeah, here we go.
We are we're a group of friends and students from all around the world. We study the wisdom of Kabbalah together. We have a super unique group, so many languages, so many cultures, so many religions all together studying. We do meals together, virtual meals together. We have an event coming up in Israel, friends coming from around the world, but we've been doing special. I mean, we've always been virtual, but the last few years, really, really virtual since COVID started. We do weekly virtual meals together. We make music together. Last Thursday night in New York, Friday morning in the Eastern Hemisphere, we had a meal together, a big virtual meal, a couple thousand people. And each time, like another group of friends from a different country presents, what's going on in that country, what they're working on, inspires everyone. So last week on Thursday here, like I said, Friday morning in the Eastern Hemisphere, it was his friends from Turkey. And specifically one friend, Ahmet, was talking about, I'll show you how I can do this. Let's see. Here. Can you, no. Hold on a sec. This is what I want to show you. Chris, tell me that you can see it when I put it up.
Let's see.
Yeah, there you go. This is Ahmet, and he was playing a song for us. That's him in his apartment in southern Turkey. And he was talking. We're excited to get. He's talking about all of us getting together in a couple weeks in Israel, and really heartfelt, really warm. And he was playing that song, from his apartment. Like 2 days later or something, we got a message that he was buried in rubble underneath that apartment there, and he, some people in his family made it. He didn't make it. Kind of shocking, kind of like coincidental, so to speak, that like 2 days before from that exact place, he like sent out this message of love to everyone. I was listening to a woman from Turkey this morning. She was asking for thoughts and prayers as there's still people trapped under crumbling buildings and freezing temperatures. I was trying to imagine myself in that situation. Like what are you thinking about? What's going on for you in that situation? So first of all, our hearts go out to everyone in Syria and Turkey and anywhere else who's going through.
I think it's over 12,000 people now, something like that.
Yeah, tragedy like this. Like as an aside, it makes you think like, wow, there's so many people suffering from all different things. It's interesting. Like even here in the States, like a lot of news coming in about Turkey. We hear almost nothing about Syria. I know that Syria's lost like, over 100,000 people or more in a civil war, right? Like it's just not in our news. It's not like in our consciousness. So, obviously there's many more people suffering, but for some reason this really comes up into our collective consciousness like this, at least for us. But that's kind of on the ground what we're seeing, and it's pretty tragic. It makes you think a lot about what we're doing, what's going on here. There was a time a couple billion years ago where there was not even an Earth. So how our Earth formed, how our moon formed, it's interesting. You can see all kind of videos about this, how water came to Earth, how iron, for example, which we need in our blood in order to live, came to Earth, how everything came from things smashing into each other. All the hikes that we go on, in the mountains or on the trails, all that nature that we enjoy, all of it is a result of huge violent eruptions a long time ago. And then,
We
the
heard about them.
rocks.
We just didn't feel them. We didn't experience the. Sometimes we do, but you kind of forget how violent things need to be for you to.
Yeah, you go for a cool hike on some trail, and you forget that cold and rain and wind and smashing uh, worked on this until it became suitable for us to enjoy all the skiing we like to do, all the lakes that we like to swim in, all the picnics by the beach. All of this was formed by the earth being ripped apart by ice, by plates, broken by force, by comets, etc. So that's the way of the development of Earth. If we know about some things, obviously we're living after that for the most part. But if there is an active volcano, we shouldn't set up a village at the foot of an active volcano. That's not a good idea
Right.
if we don't want to be melted. And like in Florida, they're building luxury apartment buildings on a shoreline that within 20 years is going to be at the mercy of beating waves and storms, like
Well, forget about the
hitting.
hurricanes that come every season too.
Right. So, okay, the San Andreas, okay, so perfect example. The San Andreas Fault in California, Los Angeles, Hollywood, San Francisco. Like there could be, experts say it's long overdue, although they've been saying it as long as I can remember. So I don't know if it's, how long they're going to keep saying it's long overdue,
Long
but
overdue. Yeah, you
there's
hear that a
the
lot, don't you?
San Andreas Fault runs through California. And the experts say it could be magnitude 8. So that the earthquake in Turkey, I think, was 7.8. So
Yeah.
so does that mean should we, if we know that there's a place that there's a fault, like Turkey has had in the last 100 years 50 earthquakes, like more than 5 on the Richter scale, more than 6 on the
Oh,
Richter scale. Yeah, 50. I mean, just Google history of earthquake. This area is super prone to earthquakes. So um, So should we not build should we just not live there? Like we wouldn't live at the foot of a volcano. I don't know. Should we not live in any of these places where things can happen? Is it worth the risk? Should everybody leave California? Is it worth it that we all leave
well, that's a good
California?
question. That's
Like,
a great question.
um, so, but if we are going to live in these places, what do we need to do as far as mitigating disasters, like architecturally? Chris, for some reason you're like kind of like glitching a
I
little
know.
bit.
I know.
You know about it already?
I can see
Okay.
it myself too. Yeah. There's nothing I can do
Okay.
about it.
Okay. Um, so if we're going to live in these places, what can we do about it? And if we're going to be in a place that disasters are going to happen, what what is there? Here's something also to show you. Look at this. You know, I lived in Manhattan during 9/11 back in the day. And right after 9/11, New Yorkers were so incredibly generous and kind with each other. Like everybody felt they were in something together. People were, regardless of politics or any of that. So I'm just saying, like, if you were in that city at that time, like everyone was holding the door for everyone. Everyone was like looking
Right.
out for everyone. That was the feeling. And it lasted like a few weeks. Uh,
Which is pretty
and
good,
check this.
actually.
It
Honestly.
was,
Yeah.
I guess. Look at this.
Yeah.
Okay, you see this?
Yes.
You see this?
Yes.
Okay, this is an Israeli plane and an Iranian plane. Both arrived in Turkey. There's an Iranian flag. Look on the tail. An
Ah,
Iranian
right.
flag
Yeah.
and an Israeli flag.
Oh,
So two mortal enemies. Mortal enemies.
right.
Who
Interesting.
normally are at war with each other. Now, most actually, I think Iranians, like normal Iranians and normal Israelis, I think they send each other love messages via the internet,
Right.
like we really like you, but the governments we know are constantly at each other. Um, but look what happens when there's a crisis. Like, look what happened during 9/11 in New York. Look what happens when there is an earthquake here. So
You're saying there's some kind of some good comes out of it? Is that what you're trying to say?
Um, I'm saying when these things happen, it changes how we act.
Right.
And Iranians and Israelis getting along after something like this. Can they get along? Is this the only way?
Oh, there you
After, is this the only way for them to get along? Is this the only
go.
way for people in New York to come together? Is a building being hit in their city? Um,
Have you
there's a
seen
lot of
any other?
questions that kind of. Hmm.
Have you seen? First of all, how's is my audio as choppy as my video?
The audio, no, audio's okay.
Have you seen any other means of reaching that special feeling, like you said in New York or in Israel, even here, whenever there's some kind of attack or whatever?
Um, I think like the Shroud of Turin or something like. I think like if like Jesus shows up in your piece of toast, like I think people get excited. Or if like no, like if all of a sudden like there's a double rainbow, if there's some kind of they'd be like, oh my God, so
Double rainbow.
beautiful, yeah, double rainbow across the sky. Um, no, these kind of things make people like wow, but besides that, no, not
No,
really.
not really. Yeah, because really, not really.
No, actually,
You
I
could.
did. Actually, after Argentina won the World Cup, like
Oh,
it looked like there was millions of people in the street.
right. Well, there's the
So you
common
need a World
denominator.
Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is a common denominator, which is something is affecting all of us. That's kind of the common denominator, right? Like, you have the World Cup,
Mm,
which everyone feels as like their own mutual something that they all share, like this baby, right? That they're all kind of concerned about and are happy when it's successful, sad whenever it's unsuccessful. Or you've got tragedies, which everyone feels like this one thing is also that also belongs to them, whether it's their country, whether it's their neighbor. Then if you share something with your neighbor who also shares something with, a neighbor which is hundreds of kilometers away, which experiences the same thing, you kind of already feel this kind of connection. And you are empathetic towards them. Yeah, I can see where you're saying like, yeah, tragedy also breeds some kind of you could say unity. I don't know if it's exactly the unity that Kabbalah would refer to, but it does show you that it's not all bad. Do you want to go that far to say such a thing that it's not all bad?
well, I want to go even further, but tell me what you mean.
Well, first of all, yeah, the whole thing that happened in Turkey. I mean, you can let, maybe I'll even send you. I mean, I don't know how I don't know how informed or how up to speed people are. Let me send this thing to you. Oh my god, my computer is so slow. I should have done a restart before all this.
No, but don't be bogged down by the computer. Just be with me.
So I want to send you this thing. Oh, here it is. Found it. Just open this link up while I'm talking. Yeah.
Okay, I got one
Um,
link already from you with the
I think this is
birds.
the one. Yeah, that's for later. This is for one where you can just see the rubble. We had a friend give us like a little
I,
update. Yeah.
where'd you send it? Oh, here.
Sorry,
Got it.
To the Zoom chat.
Got it.
I think that's the right one. Open it up and show me. I'm afraid to even open it because it's just
It's from
gonna
K
slow
News.
it.
Turkey refuses Cyprus offer for this goes. Turkey refuses help from Cyprus. Uh, the
Right.
Republic of Cyprus expressed readiness to contribute to the mission of rescue. We got the answer from Turkey. Thank you, but we won't take it. Is this the one you wanted to?
That wasn't it, but that is interesting. I forgot that I sent that to myself. Yeah, so that's we can talk about that in a little bit and bring that back up again because that's an interesting little thing that's happening. But basically, anyone who wants to Google, maybe even Seth, if you want to, in the meantime, you can Google, destruction in Turkey. So we had a friend give an update about what's going on there. He basically said it's a war zone over there. I mean, if you can imagine 12,000 um, people dying, what kind of destruction you need to see as far as buildings collapsing to even reach such a number. So when you include yourself, I mean, Jesus, look at that.
Wow.
I hope everyone can see what we're seeing. I mean, it's basically every building is completely, and you've got a lot of people, families just stuck under this stuff. Sometimes they're still alive for days, and sometimes you don't make, I mean, look at that. When you think of an earthquake, you think of like, an uncomfortable situation. Maybe some things break here and there, but this is like, um, this is really hard. I mean, I mean, you want to put a dollar amount to it, how many billions of dollars in reconstruction that is. That's not really an emotional thing, but you can talk about everyone there is somehow affected, right? So that's kind of the situation going on over there. So whenever we're going to come over here and we're going to talk about how Kabbalists would view such a thing, that such an event, it's kind of important to not disconnect from that picture where that there's a bunch of people who are suffering and who have gone through something that maybe it's easy to talk about from the side because you're not there.
Mm.
But it's important just to try to stay attached to that emotional point, because otherwise you can just kind of get lost in your own words and feel like you're talking about something that doesn't exist. But we want to make sure that we know that it exists before we really talk about things that maybe sound a little bit I don't know, like uncompassionate. Is that even a word? Like, the opposite of compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we going with this? Basically, so you saw what happened there in Turkey. So I think if we're gonna look at this and not just be some news organization that says, hey, yeah, this many people died, this we can blame, like you said, should we even be building houses next to the foot of a volcano? I mean, you could go as far as, so we're not some news organization that's saying, this is what's happening, reporting on the news, right? But we want to, if we're studying Kabbalah, and Kabbalah tells us about the direction of some this advancement, this progression, this development of not just the human species, but all of the world together, then we kind of need to take a different emotional approach, right? Are you with me? Are we
Yeah, I
flowing?
want to know where are you going. I'm not sure where you're going to go.
So when I say things like, first of all, there are Kabbalists can look at something like this and feel the suffering that's happening on one hand, but on the other hand, something that normal people don't have any attachment to, which is a different vision, a different sense, a different observation point, where every regular everyday people can like figure out some I don't know, observation point in their head and kind of relate to it from, like, I'm outside of myself a little bit, but Kabbalists are referring it to it from the perspective of how the creator, how nature, how this overwhelming, this all-encompassing force which directs all of nature and guides it and nurtures it and manages it. It's all just one force. So how does that one force relate to it? Or of course the big question is, why is there such a thing? So if we want to start this conversation, we could probably talk about why, which is kind of like, okay, so if there's a
What?
if there's something so tragic that happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
We kind of need to ask our question. First of all, why did it happen? First, should we prevent it? Yeah, I think we should prevent it. Yeah, don't build your house next to on a fault line, maybe. Don't, or at the foot of a volcano. You can even say, okay, well, if you join NATO or something like that, this is just an idea. If you join NATO, then they make you have certain military specs, right? If you're joining them, they want you to have, everything needs to be, you have to, this kind of infrastructure you need to have, like, for military, right? But let's say that if you want to join some treaty where you're connected with other countries and you realize that, okay, if one country gets hit by, like what just happened right now, by like a really massive earthquake, that's billions of dollars and from every way, in and out of countries coming to help, right? And do repairs and do, provide medical treatment and everything like that. But if we decided ahead of time some kind of treaty that we were only going to, if you were going to join this alliance, then you're going to have to also upgrade your infrastructure. It's time. You have this pressure from the outside. Otherwise, people, you're not going to move. Even here in Israel, you have 600,000 homes which are unsafe for for earthquakes. So yeah, you can start. Let's start the conversation by saying, okay, first of all, let's help one another get to the point where we're going to be more safe. I think that's practically that's something you could say.
Just
But
a regular. I mean, before you get to spirituality, you're saying like, let's like if something happens, we need to be able to get helicopters in there. We need to be able to get vehicles in there, and
yeah,
let's not put the buildings in the most vulnerable places. And because things happen, right? Earth is developing, so there's a few different things here. We understand where this system of nature is developing us to where the system of nature is developing us towards. And the more we develop, the more our senses become more nuanced, the more we can feel in what's happening. Um, and, and like you're saying, you don't want to sound insensitive about like,
insensitive. Yeah,
yeah, like, okay, so you people have to suffer. There had to be a Holocaust. There is. Wait, hold on, slow down. We're on Earth. We're dealing with, practical things, but we also need to understand what's the game we're playing, and why do we see the reality
right,
like this? So, just fundamentally, because we're going to develop this step by step. So we have to get along just as people. So if we're going to build homes and we're going to start to cooperate as nations. So if you have a problem, I'm going to come help you. And if I have a problem, you're going to come help me. But look now, like Turkey says to Cyprus, no, we don't want we don't want your help.
right.
No, like leave us alone here. And this one says, no, we don't want your help there. So, and also, if I want to come help, like, how am I going to get in? Where's your roads? Why'd you build it like this? This is not the right way to build it. It's impossible
Yeah,
to get over here. And where am I going to land a helicopter if I need to help because of this? So they're all of a sudden, we're all trying to figure out a way to help each other, or trying to build something that we can all then help each other. And in that situation, you can't just think about yourself. You can't just build whatever you want to build and make city ordinances based on your own thing, because all the other neighboring countries are saying, okay, well, you're going to help me. I'm going to help you. Where am I going to land?
which
How are we going to do this? And
is
all of a sudden,
yeah.
countries have to start kind of calibrating
Which that's already a
towards each other.
huge big step. I mean, we're saying it like something that, is plausible or probable, but if you think about what actually needs to take place in order to even reach that, that's a lot of changes that each country has to concede on something that maybe they wanted to do ahead of time. Maybe this arena is more important than redoing our
Right. If we wanted to
infrastructure.
build a soccer arena by the river because of such and such, but if God forbid there was an earthquake, like there was already 50 of them before in the last 100 years, maybe it's not the best. And then the people who we're partnering with in this regional safety and um, mutual support network that we have between us, they're not going to be able to, you know, get their help into us. And so
Yeah,
we have to start, making these different decisions. But by this, nature is developing us to figure into into a life where we're already more considerate of
yeah,
where we build, how we're considerate of the other of our neighboring countries around us. And then in that situation, we're not just thinking about how to exploit each other. We're not thinking about
right.
just how to war with each other, because we're busy figuring out how are we helping
But
each
you see
other.
how different, you see how it's such a different mindset already. I mean, that's almost a 180-degree change in a mindset. You're thinking about doing what's best for other countries for them to help you, even though it's for them to help you in the end, right? That's ultimately the motivation here, is so that they can serve me, right? But still, your the whole mindset is completely changed. I didn't expect to talk about this so long, but it's really interesting because the whole mindset is different. If you approach it in such a way where I need to allow them to help me, that means I need to be thinking about them. Even though ultimately it's about me. So there's not really any examples besides trade, or some Kabbalistic examples where that's kind of rings true. It's different whenever you're talking about saving lives, making the quality of life better for people in another country. It's kind of a completely different way of approaching things, which seems like that could possibly that's still kind of far away if you think about it where we are today. But just think about how much that would save, first of all, and then we wouldn't have to experience maybe such a high death toll. So that's one thing, right? But here's the facts. it happened already. So so we kind of just need to figure out how to relate to it. I think is kind of the next step, right? You want to go down this road?
No,
How
this
do we
is the
relate
more
to it?
hard conversation to have.
Yeah, but I think when we say it out loud and we're like kind of like walking with each other, tiptoeing um, towards that destination, I think we'll kind of like we'll feel it out and we'll reveal some things. So how do we relate to it? Well, first of all, you have a bunch of people who who they're the majority of people just walk around living their lives. What are they doing? Um, we don't like exactly to say, they're living like animals, but it's only animals just because of the level of the values, basically, which is nothing, no aspiration for something higher. Like, I'm born, a high school crush, I get a job, get married, children, they have children, grandparent, and then die. I mean, that's kind of the template for most most people in the world, right? That's kind of how they live their lives. Now, I want that road path. Okay, maybe they're not even thinking about it. That's just like what they accept. That's what they receive, and so that's what they take. But this path needs to be the least amount of pain and the most pleasurable, like the easiest, right? So that's kind of where most people fit as far as how they perceive what happens in their lives. Is this making my life on that path more difficult? Do I need to change something? But I'm still headed towards that goal of grandchildren, all this, that basic path. And so something disturbs that and it causes me pain, along the way. It could be anything like, oh, it's like our whole life is just a battle. It's like from anything from like, the kids are sick, rent is due. I don't know. You always give a bunch of good examples like this. I don't know. I got yelled at, or about by my boss, by my wife. All these little things are like they're just things that happen in your life that make you uncomfortable. And the moment you're uncomfortable, it's kind of an indication that you are out of balance. Let's just stop there, and maybe let's just maybe there's something to talk about. Maybe there's something to unpack here. Until now, you have a direction you want to go.
Yeah. I always have the questions in my mind of like, what would I ask the Kabbalist?
Hmm.
What do I want to know? Like, I want to know, like, when do the earthquakes end? When do people stop dying? When do we see, does it have to be like this?
I think everybody
So,
wants
because like, for example,
earthquakes to end,
the
but
Kabbalist,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no, 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 no.
The Kabbalist comes and says, when the human degree, the speaking degree comes into balance, all of nature will come into balance below it, meaning all of the earth, all the animals, all the
Right. The
planets,
the
all the
sheep will,
stars,
the lamb will lay with the wolf.
everything will come into alignment, come into balance. The whole system will come into balance. So, okay, so there was always planets, things smashing into each other, comets smashing into each other, plates moving around, hurricanes, tsunamis, fires, volcanoes. So when Kabbalists are saying when people start loving each other, like not only on this planet, but in all of the universe, known and unknown, everything will come into balance. What does that mean?
Right.
What are you talking about? Are you bullshitting me? Is this fantasy? Is this a dream? Um, what are you talking about?
Wasn't that
You
what
sound
everybody
like,
wants?
huh?
Anyways, isn't that what everybody wants?
No, but it doesn't sound realistic at all.
But it's what
So,
people want, though. It's like a desire that people have. Yeah.
which is
I
what?
per-
To know the
well,
answer or for that
no,
reality?
it's just I don't want. Basically, you're saying I don't want bad things to happen.
Well, bigger question. I mean, so what is the lion going to eat if he's not going to eat the lamb?
Oh, so
How is it
so it
that
depends
everything
on
is going
how
to,
we define what's bad and what's good.
well, or how is everything going to come into balance? Where do people, will there still be earthquakes? So this opens up a lot of questions that we should think about. The answers in the wisdom of Kabbalah don't just like, ah, got it, put it in my
Right.
pocket. Now I can go
Yeah.
on with my life.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Fun.
need to ask
Answer
these questions
fulfilled.
inside and think about these questions inside and work on these questions inside. And these answers, the real answers, come out of your heart, which is sometimes why or oftentimes, or all the time, why it's difficult or impossible or even called forbidden in the wisdom of Kabbalah to speak about certain things. Doesn't mean forbidden like you can't just say the words. It means like it's impossible, because unless the other person's heart is in harmony with your heart, you can't transfer. There's no transference between them.
Right.
But um, well, I want to do this more conversationally than just kind of riffing on like the deepest questions that I have about all of this and where it goes.
Yeah. I
But
liked what you said though earlier.
but the thing that I want to try and open up here conversationally is that the world, the earthquakes, the shifting of the plates, all of the continents were, you can see how they fit together, we're together and they broke apart, and all of this process that took place, and how water came to earth, and all the collisions, and how our moon smashed and another piece broke and it took so long for it to start orbiting. So all of that, once we become loving beings, whatever that means, like everything just, what does it mean? So what the Kabbalists are telling us about the nature of reality is that all of the problems, all of the shattering, all of that transition, all of these things are to get us to a point of development. All of these things are processes of development, and the reality that we see, the broken realities that we see, the reality of earthquakes that we see, is based on our shattered perception of something called the soul of Adam Harishon, the shattered soul, and that we perceive everything as broken, meaning there is a whole perfect reality that exists now. The wolf
Does
that what?
what is broken? What do we mean broken then? In that situation, what I see is it broken.
Okay,
What could a
I can
person?
try and give like a super simple example that if I have two children who are fighting over something, but I, as their parent, they each think they need to get like this thing or this thing or this thing, but I, as the parent, have love for both of them, and I see how they can both have something and how everything can be okay. But because they're on a lower degree than me, they can't see the big picture. They can only see, what their 5-year-old,
Right.
eyes see, for example.
Yeah.
They don't see how everything's going to be okay. They don't see how everything already is okay, and everyone's going to have everything they need, but they just have their 5-year-old perception that I
Mhm.
need this. And the other one has the one that I need this. And every kid on the playground has what he needs. And every
Right.
person in the world now is just viewing the world based on what he needs,
Yeah.
which is why it's so revolutionary, even for the countries, to just have cooperation on how to build
Right. That's what I'm saying.
infrastructure.
It seems like it's so far away already. It seems distant.
So the real solution, which is way beyond the scope of what we can talk about here, but so there's many things we're talking about. First of all, we're talking about the real suffering and how that makes us feel and how we want to help on that level. The next thing we're talking about is what we can do to prevent, to work together just in a practical,
Practically.
earthly
Yeah.
level, to work together to prevent things and also to start working towards building good life instead of working towards war like all the nations are working towards constantly.
Yeah.
And then the biggest level, the next, the real vanguard of all this, avant-garde of all this, is perception of reality, is is developing our perception of reality to exist in a whole reality. Wow, it's even hard to say it based on in a time like that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I wanted to say that we don't want to forget about what's happening, because you could easily say, "Oh, perception of reality," while there are thousands of people buried underneath, all kinds of wreckage. So the whole time we're kind of talking about having one thing in one hand and something else on the other hand. Uh, yeah. So So I want to go back to something earlier when we started talking about the people and how they observe reality, how they live their life, right? We always said that was like an animalistic kind of way of living, right? And Soph always has a good way of explaining how we're completely outside of that. We're kind of outside of what there's nature, and there are these forces and systems happening that existed before humans arrived, did some developing, and now here we are today. I'm here with you on the show, and I don't necessarily feel when there's going to be an earthquake. I don't feel that um, I'm behind on doing the things that nature's expecting me to do. I don't feel that. I don't feel that pressure. But what I do feel and what I do see are tragedies and uh, my inability to justify anything that's happening. It's like what I was put on this life, didn't ask to be put here in this world, to live this life. No one asked me. I don't have a really choice. It's basically a battle all the time. But while on the other hand, nature created this like magnificent thing that we see, this reality with all of these balancing, with all these two forces, but constantly finding balance between them. And then for me, just to be born and to hate every minute of my life almost, essentially, that's the purpose, right? And nature's capable of creating such a beautiful thing, and here I am coming along, just cursing everything, waking up in the morning because I have to go to work, and the first thing I'm doing is just cursing the fact that I have to wake up. That's what we're saying it needs to happen. So we're kind of separated. We don't understand what the thought of nature is. We're lacking. We're lacking in that department big time.
We're behind.
So
It's
we're
all concealed from us.
it's concealed from us, but we sometimes get little hints that we are that we're missing something. Otherwise, we wouldn't
By
really
the
know
way,
that we're missing something.
Rabash, our teacher's teacher, writes really clearly about why it's concealed from us. Because if every time we did an action totally in harmony with the life-giving force, we were rewarded with pleasure beyond any pleasure we can imagine. And if we were to do something against the life-giving force that promotes the harmony of the entire integral system, we would immediately get sick or die. So we would only,
We'd figure that out real quick. Yeah.
we would only do exactly everything that is in line with the highest harmony of the whole system.
Who else does
And
that?
angels, I mean, you could
Ah,
say animals, but we have way more intelligence than animals. We would be just at a higher level than an animal. You just call us basically an angel animal. We would have no free choice at all. We would have no self-determination at
right.
all. So this veil, this concealment, this restriction is intentional in order that we can come to that highest harmonious place, but that it's like something that we attain in our hand, that we reach
Yeah.
it, not as just zombies, angels, but so the purpose
So,
of the
well,
concealment.
first we have to have a desire for that, and we'll get that. We'll get that, and you can see from things like this earthquake where the desire is to just clean up everything, make everything okay again. Everyone gets what they need to have. And then, like you said, sometimes it lasts 2 weeks, right? Where there's like these residual things where you're still experiencing what it meant. But the desire is kind of the only thing that matters. But can you go to this clip real quick that I sent you? It's just
Okay.
interesting. It's
In
interesting that,
in WhatsApp.
yeah, just
Okay.
if you could,
Just a
you don't
sec.
need sound, so don't worry about the sound. You
Okay.
can
Just
just
a
mute
sec.
it. Although, actually, if you can play the sound, that would be nice because it's kind of
Okay. I'm gonna
interesting to
do my
hear the
best.
commotion. This is before the earthquake in Turkey. So people are filming the birds. They're like, wait, why are the birds acting like this? This was the explanation I received. Usually, they're much quieter, apparently, at this hour, but you've got a bunch of commotion. This is what it looks like, right? It's commotion. You could say. and it's like this unsettled feeling. And I guess that's why they started recording, was because they noticed something weird. I guess the person recording didn't connect it to there was going to be some major geological event.
Mm.
um, but there's something happening here where they're noticing that the birds are acting strange. So we're inferring that the birds understood that something was coming or was about to happen. Just the same
Or
way you always
understood,
see
or they felt
dogs.
something.
The dogs also feel, they have some elephants also, or they have really sensitive pads in their feet that they can sense vibration. So that's just kind of an explanation, like, okay, fine, birds have certain senses, right? But they're sensing what's happening all over the world. Magnetics. Apparently, that's how they're guided. They can sense like magnetic fields, um, or so they have additional senses, which Kabbalah isn't saying that humans need to go back down to their animalistic roots and develop senses that will tell them when earthquakes are coming. But it just gives you a clue into the picture that, okay, there's the rest of the planet is kind of, when we say that there's a crisis, an energy crisis or a climate crisis, of course that's something that's comes from the human side. This is like a human invented thing. Nothing else is in crisis. Birds can fly away if there's an earthquake, you know
Yeah,
or if
I see
swim.
it says elephants that before this tsunami, elephants ran for higher ground, flamingos abandoned low-lying nesting areas, and dogs refused to go outdoors in the coastal village of Bangkok in Thailand. A herd of buffalo suddenly pricked up their ears and then stampeded to the top of a nearby hill. Cows, goats, cats, and birds deliberately moved inland after the earthquake, before the tsunami came. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
So,
I mean,
okay, so
so here's the egoistic response. The egoistic response is just like
right,
train a bunch of animals and just keep them nearby and just watch what they do. And if they start acting, then we should move away, right? We can continue to
right.
act like selfish people and build wherever we want and live egoistically, but all the rich people can get a bunch of elephants to keep in the backyard. And if the elephants start panicking,
Because they'll be the
then they
first
know to
ones,
get out of
right?
town.
Yeah, it's like their own bunker. Yeah, it's like the equivalent of a
Right.
bunker. Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting when you look at animals and you say, okay, they know something we don't. But really, the point is that you could say that we finally feel that we're lacking something, like, oh, it'd be good. So we want to maybe develop technology if that's what happens. Oh, let's build better technology. Okay, it's all about preventing the troubles, or prevent or sweetening or mitigating these the sorrows that come to our life, right? That's kind of always how we steer this boat. And so when something like this happens, like you have a disaster like this that happens, you're immediately thinking, okay, how do we prevent this from happening? How do we, how do we conserve, preserve our way of life and continue forward? And Kabbalah might come and say something like, uh, listen, there's a plan to all of this. You feel yourself in sorrow and in troubles and in pain and suffering for a very specific reason. And it could take people hundreds of incarnations or thousands of events and hundreds of thousands of states before one single person realizes that nature maybe wants something else from them. But maybe it takes this earthquake. Their life is completely shaken up. They're looking around. They see the world differently, and they also feel the world differently. They feel that they're being related to unjustly. Why would this happen to me? I didn't, my family didn't deserve this. My little baby sister who's buried under rubble didn't deserve all this. A person who experiences a tragic event like that, it changes the way that they perceive their life. So for some people, if it's their time, then they'll start asking, why did it happen? And the why isn't really sufficient. The answer for that why isn't really sufficient until maybe they hear the explanation that Kabbalah offers, which is that the suffering that we feel is not, um it's the suffering that we feel is because we're out of balance. So then the next question is, how do we get ourselves in balance? So if I was in balance, if I was like this, if I somehow elevated myself above something to another different plane, so I wouldn't feel suffering, and like you asked, so we wouldn't see earthquakes. So we finally arrived at your question again. So a person who feels suffering and doesn't like where they're at and wants to be in a different state, are that different state that they're in, are there still earthquakes? Are there what kind of suffering is there? Is there still suffering? So a person is kind of like not happy, not satisfied with where they are. But an event like this can kind of awaken them and shake them into thinking and looking for something else. Kabbalists tell us that everything that happens is only good. Now, when someone hears that and they just experience an earthquake, that's not something that sticks. I wouldn't say it doesn't make sense. I can't feel or see or understand anywhere where this is good. So Kabbalists either are lying or I'm missing something. And so someone who feels like Kabbalah is telling them tells them many other truths, and they want to find their path to understand and to figure out all these truths, and they may continue down the path, and they may see that the good is somewhere hidden from me. Like you said, it's concealed, right? So somehow along the way, these things have to happen in order to, everything's calculated, right? If every earthquake, every hurricane, every person that dies at this second, and how many people are dying every second, it's all calculated. We don't understand those calculations. We're just so, like you said, that the mother with the two children, we don't understand the calculations, but we want to rise to a level where we not only understand the calculations, but we're participating in those calculations. We're like part of it, right?
Yeah, a super interesting and deep part of that is you say, okay, well, everything is good. And I used to live more like a hippie. We had like this, it's like, it's all good,
Yeah.
and you can just like say it's all good, but if you
Really
examine
bad, but it's all
yourself,
good. Yeah.
what?
It's really bad, but you're saying, no, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
No, it's all good, and you just fly kind of over it. But if you examine yourself, it's not good. There's nothing that actually feels good about it at all. It's
Right.
actually really bad. So when we say that we're saying that reality is good, doesn't mean that somebody being crushed under a building is good. Right. So where is the level where the good exists, and where is the level where through my perception I see something bad? It's not that, oh, it's all good. Like I came to terms with the fact that there's bad stuff
Right.
happening on
That's
earth.
different.
Like I'm a balanced person. I do all my mental exercises, my mental hygiene and whatever. And I've come to terms with that there's a lot of bad things that happen, and I don't let it phase me. And, I'm living my best life. Or I am like that mom who lived on the level of the two 5-year-olds fighting over, who's going to get the first piece of cake or something like that. And as the mom, all I have is, or as the parent, all I have is love for both of my kids. And in my mind, in my reality, everything is fine for those kids. And I think this is a huge leap that we need to make, that we don't understand how small we are. The power of nature is infinitely powerful. I mean, each person here, think about something you tried to do. Think about a jar in your kitchen you tried to open. Or you went to the gym and you tried to lift, I don't know, 100 kilos, or, you tried to bench press 200 pounds. Like, think about something hard you tried to do. You tried to, undo a screw that was stuck in the, when you were changing the hinge on the door, in the bedroom. Think of something you tried to do. You tried to lift the couch and you hurt your back. Think of something that you tried to do that was difficult. And then think about going outside and trying to push your house over. Go outside, try and push your apartment building over. Go outside and try and lift your car up. And now think how nature in a second knocks down an entire city. Like, the power of nature is infinitely powerful. Infinitely powerful. We need to even to start to come to grasp like what we're talking about here. We have to we have to have a much more clear picture of where we are in relation to all this, and where the forces, like we're like, I can't take the lid off of my ginger brew without a special tool, but I'm going to now like try and relate to the force that like powers every star. It's ridiculous. It's really, but that's how we live, right? Like, I can't bench press 200 pounds, but I think that I'm going to like compete with the force. I'm going to manipulate for my own benefit or try and make this life work for me against the force that, throws planets around or, smashes entire cities.
Wait, so
So,
you're
what
saying
is the,
good.
huh?
So wait a second. So you're saying that good, then, if we want to say, if you mentioned, okay, so this good, we don't see the good in anywhere. So maybe good would be that I would have the ability, I would have the power within me, not physical strength, but maybe even technical understanding, how to manipulate the world around me in order to make for myself a good life. You're saying that even that is feeble.
Yeah. So, what is this power, this infinite power? Like, are we clear? That that's too hard of a question because we don't have any way to. I mean, I can't even sense the radio waves or the Wi-Fi waves in this room. How can I also sense the place where all of gravity and all electromagnetism and every other force comes from? I mean, what is the force that's
Well,
operating? It's
but say that. Let's say that. Let's say that you did have the technical ability
well. Let's.
to create
Well,
all kind of technology to prevent to know that an earthquake is coming 10 years ahead of time. Are you are you
I was.
uh
Yeah. What?
what were you?
I was starting on the other side. I was saying that that's really far, but what can I do? I was given a perfect
Hmm.
tool called my life. Everyone here, we've been given a perfect tool called our life to start to feel who I am. And what am I? Where am I? Who am I? What's operating inside of me? How did I get like this? And from that discovery, we can actually start to discover what that is.
I like it. I like it.
And then say, what is this infinitely powerful force? What is it doing? What's it all about? Are we, Chris?
Why am I part of it?
Are we just looking for 8 hours notice on earthquakes? Is that what we're looking for here?
I don't
I
think
mean, it's a
so.
start, but you know,
I mean, I think that there's the two paths too, because you have one way where you could just devote the next 50 years of humanity and investing in asteroid prevention and earthquake detection and who knows, right? Whatever else. But is that actually getting us to where we're eventually going, or is that just deviating us from the path that's going to take us longer to get there? That's really ultimately the question. How fast do we want to reach the goal that nature has set for us? And we can continue getting slapped around. We can continue to get slapped around, get beat over the head, curse everything that's happening, upset and angry at everything, or we could try to figure out what it is wrong with us that sees the world in such a way. And until then, it'll be difficult, but at the same time, very internally rewarding, because even though a person can feel suffering, if they feel behind it the intention, let's say like those children who somehow were able to rise to the level of their mother for a second, they would see that mom is not a bad mom for giving him one thing and giving the other person the other thing and it wasn't fair or whatever. They rise to the level of the mother and they see the action, which was I gave the mother, right? I gave one child something and the other child didn't receive. So the child who didn't receive is obviously cursing, right? And the child that received is happy. But from the level of the mom, there was the intention was to do good to both of them. So immediately, just in that example, you have reality split into two, like it's right down the middle, split into two different kinds of perceptions. One where something is bad is happening, and two where something good is happening. So from the side of nature, when Kabbalists say that only good is being done, it's that intention to do good. Along the way, things might feel bad, there might be tragedies, but the good intention behind it is has nothing to do with these 70 years that we're living inside this body. And that's kind of the disconnection that we're unable to make, where I relate good and bad to this body and I don't yet know how to relate to what it means to do good to the entire system, just like nature does. Good is always bitter and sweet. It's always good for me, bad for me, which is bad for my ego or good for my ego, right? But nature wants us to be bigger than that, to grow up a little bit. And unfortunately, it might take a lot of suffering for us to wake up, because it doesn't just care about me or you, right? It wants all of us to rise to that level. And so because we're together, we're stuck together, we're one system, we're all going to be going through certain things that are essentially teaching us. And some people might suffer, but at least we know that there's a direction, and for those people who know what the goal is and how to get there, they've got to do it.
Let's turn towards that force. Obviously, no plea or request or prayer, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't change gravity. You can pray all you want and jump off a building. Gravity is going to be gravity. So we're not looking to change the life of lives, but what we are looking to do is calibrate ourselves to it. So let's all turn to that force, that power, the life of lives, and ask that we can all be more calibrated, more in harmony with each other, more good to each other. And let's see in our lives how everything can turn to good. Everything, just the same way that and a bunch of buildings fall down. Let's see like this, and people wake up tomorrow, or maybe it doesn't happen tomorrow, but people start waking up with a feeling of brotherhood in their heart, with a feeling of that we're all one earthly family. Let's start calibrating ourselves towards it. Let's start thinking about it more and more above all of our other thoughts and problems. And let's add to that, and let's be part of making that happen. We miss our friend Asaf, who's not here. He's fine. He just had something to deal with today. We look forward to, next Thursday we're together. I think the following Thursday we'll all be in the big event in Israel, right? Okay.
No, yeah.
So thanks everybody for coming here. Our hearts go out to everyone who is suffering, and we will all help each other. And we will see you next week.
Yes. Bye, friends.
Small creatures on a small planet in some remote galaxy, trying to maintain our protein bags. What a fallacy. Now we've got a path to traverse out of this universe, and no, we cannot stop our destiny call. It's evolution pushing us ahead. It's revolution waking the dead. It's time to move on. It's time to rise above. It's time to be born. And we're surely meant to go beyond this dream reality. The light is pushing us to bond spirituality. Now we are leaving our egos to rust. It's time for love and for trust. And no, we won't resign. We got a world to design. It's evolution pushing us ahead. It's